Imagine waking up one day to realize your neighbor owns all the roads to your house. And this neighbor also happens to be your biggest enemy. They're building bases, alliances all around you, and slowly tightening the circle. This is exactly what's happening with India right now. This strategy is called String of Pearls. China has already invested over $385 billion in more than 165 countries, building over 100 ports around the world, highways, major infrastructure projects, and building military bases. And if these countries are not able to pay back, China takes control over these ports and the projects. But here's the catch. India sits in the middle of this tightening circle. Hang tight until the end. We're going to reveal China's newest and most powerful weapon. It is so critical that Donald Trump was forced to pause tariffs on China, and it has every major economy scrambling. In the next few minutes, you're going to find out how this invisible war is being fought and how countries like India and Japan are finally pushing back. China's South Asian strategy started around early 2000s. It was a long game focused mainly on India, the only regional power that was capable of challenging Beijing's ambitions. Let's take a look how India is being encircled from all four directions. In the north, the Himalayas, Asia's rooftop, and the birthplace of rivers that keep over 1 billion people alive. China controls the headwaters of Brahmaputra, Satluj, and Indus River. After building 3 gorgeous dams, China is building world's largest hydroelectric dam on Brahmaputra, a dam so huge that it is going to impact the lives of 400 million people. And those so-called civilian villages near Arunachal Pradesh, they are being built with military-grade roads, helipads, and surveillance systems.
The same area. As you can see, on the left-hand side is the image from the 19th of March 2019. There is no construction over there. And this image on the 20th of September 2021, as you can see, is of this complete image.
Imagine your worst enemy taking control of your neighbor's house and then keeping an eye on you and watching your every move. This is exactly what is happening with India's southern neighbor, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is also a classic example of Chinese debt trap. China gave over $1.1 billion to Sri Lanka to build Hambantota port. When Sri Lanka failed to pay back, China took control of the port. Now, this port sits with China for 99 years, and India has some serious concerns with Chinese presence close to its borders. Now, China is watching India's every move in Indian Ocean. In Maldives, nearly 40% of national debt is owed to China. Ports and infrastructure built with Chinese money and controlled by Chinese contractors. On Eastern Front, China has given over $24 billion to Bangladesh in loans in a decade to fund bridges, metros, and highways. On the Western Front, China is putting $62 billion in China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which runs from Pakistani-occupied Kashmir all the way to Arabian Sea. And China is handing over its most advanced weapons. South Asian coast is turning red with the Chinese flag. China's ambitions and strategies are not just limited to South Asia. It is actually happening at a global scale. And China even branded this strategy. It's being called BRI, or Belt and Road Initiative Project. It was launched in 2013, and it is one of the most ambitious projects ever done in human history. We're talking about trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars are being invested into Asia, Africa, and South America, just to increase Chinese influence. Today, more than 150 countries have already signed on. China has already invested $1 trillion in the project, and experts say this amount could go up to $8 trillion. You're right, $8 trillion. What does this money buy for China? Highways across Africa, dams across Asia, railways in Europe, and controlling resources in South America. One of the biggest highlights of this project is CPEC, or China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. China has invested more than $62 billion alone in Pakistan, developing its ports, airports, and highways, and taking control over crucial resources in Balochistan. In Africa, China is playing the long game. China is handing out billions of dollars in loans for railways and highways. But here's the catch. The debt is so huge that it is unsustainable for most countries. Countries like Kenya and Zambia, they're drowning in repayments. And when they cannot pay back, China gains control. Different continent, same strategy. In Ecuador, China helped build a hydroelectric dam. Sounds great, right? Until you realize that Ecuador had to repay with 80% of its oil exports to China. Small island nations are being offered upgrades to their ports, new government buildings, not just as a goodwill from China. These are the crucial locations near United States and Australia. Closer to home, China uses a different strategy, which is economic pressure. In Japan, rare earth exports were banned. China put on trade restrictions on South Korea during US missile deployments. Now countries are using Chinese-built ports, Chinese-built grids, and highways are built by China too. You're seeing the pattern here. Countries are becoming increasingly dependent on Chinese loans. China is not invading anybody, but it's actually embedding itself. You see what's happening, right? Different continents, but same strategy. Give debts, give out the loans, invest money, but then control the most strategic locations and resources. But one country in South Asia is quietly responding, not with noise, but with precision. It's India. In North, India is fast-tracking more than 60 infrastructure projects. It has also established Mountain Strike Corps for Ladakh and Arunachal regions. India is also building rail and energy projects with Nepal, and it's increasing its military cooperation with Bhutan. South, this is where India is really shining. India is building Chabahar port in Iran to bypass China's Pakistani economic corridor. It offers direct access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. New naval bases are being built, INS Jatayu and INS Varsha.
Beneath the tranquil shores of a coastal village on the Bay of Bengal, India is building a multi-billion-dollar base. Designed to protect India's growing fleet of nuclear submarines in a key area of the Indian Ocean, the new base INS Varsha has a secret design feature.
Strait of Malacca is a crucial choke point. China's 70% of trade passes through this region, and at the time of conflict, India can block the trade.
That carry around 30% of all globally traded goods towards this narrow waterway known as the Strait of Malacca, and around 80% of China's oil imports pass through this critical choke point.
Using Act East policy, India is deepening its ties with Asian countries. India and the West is working on something very ambitious, which is called India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, which is seen as an alternate to China's BRI. India's moves are not loud, but they're very precise. It's not a reaction, it's a prevention. Japan is also quietly transforming into China's biggest headache. Japan is conducting lots of missile tests on its soil. Japan is also working on its ambitious fighter jet program. They are raising their defense budget to almost 3% of GDP. Japan is actively working to counter China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific region. Japan is looking to double its military spending by year 2027. Japan is deepening its ties with the United States, Australia, India, and European countries. Japan is working on its own initiatives to provide infrastructure and development assistance to many countries in the region to compete with China's BRI. For example, Japan is currently working with Indian government to build high-speed rail project in India. When you think of weapons, you think about fighter jets, 5th generation, 6th generation, but China's newest and most powerful weapon is actually invisible, and it is buried deep underground. And this weapon is so powerful that countries are scrambling and trying to convince Beijing to secure a reliable supply. We're talking about rare earth metals. These metals are being used everywhere, from your smartphones to your TVs to your electric cars. Without these metals, running your modern economy is almost impossible. And China controls 80% of the supply chain. About 10 to 15 countries have good stock of rare earth metals. But only China realized the potential of these metals a long time ago and developed the supply chain. Now it controls over 80% of world supply. After Donald Trump imposed tariffs on China, China blocked the supply of these metals to US, forcing Donald Trump to pause those tariffs. It is also blocking the supply of these metals to India. And as a result, Indian Foreign Minister XiJinping went to Beijing and tried to convince China to resume the supply chain. Rare earth metals are now one of the biggest bargaining chip in global diplomacy. Sea routes, ports, highways, rare earth metals, satellites, whoever controls them controls the future. Beijing is not playing a short game. It is building an empire that is going to last for centuries, very cleverly keeping its contenders in check, even though it's rapidly building its army without even shedding a single drop of blood. Unlike USA, who got involved in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam wars, China, without even shedding a single drop of blood, is able to dominate a lot of countries and a lot of regions. If this video opened your eyes, make sure to share it. Subscribe to our channel, The Real Lens. See the moves that are shaping your world before it is too late.